I'd like to begin by calling the roll. I'll start over here.
Randy, board clerk. Jane Neal, business manager.
Bob Simmons, superintendent.
Tom Truman, Hebron.
David Gustanian, Andover.
Judy Benson, Clark, Marlboro.
Danny Holtzclaw, Andover.
Amy Demonio, Hebron.
Richard Jacobson, Hebron.
Bruce Olmsted, Hebron.
Sue Bradford, Marlboro.
Charles Shea, Marlboro.
Madeline Fitzgerald, student representative, Hebron.
Andy Caterino, Marlboro. Taylor Blasio, student representative, Marlboro.
Okay, could we all rise for the pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to begin by seeking nominations for the chairman of the regional school, district school board. First nomination.
Nominate Danny Holtzclaw for chairman.
Is there a second to the nomination?
Second.
Okay, any other nominations?
Nominate Rich Jacobson.
Is there a second to the nomination?
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for the position of chair? Okay. All those in favor of Mr. Holtzclaw for chairman, since he was the first nominated, say aye, or raise your hand so we can count. Aye. Six, am I correct? All those in favor of Mr. Jacobson, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Joe, do you have a vote here?
Okay, I can't hear everything other than what you're saying.
Okay, I'm sorry, Joe, it's Danny. The question is, are you voting for chair? There's two nominees. One is me, and the second is Rich. And we need your vote.
Okay, thank you.
Vote, Joe?
You taking a vote now, Dan?
Yeah, we're almost through. We just need to know your decision.
My vote is for Rich.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. What is the total?
5 for Rich. 26 for Danny.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Holtzclaw, you'd like to chair the board, and I would give the privilege of seeking nominations for the remaining positions on the board.
Thank you. That brings us to the next position, which is vice chairperson. We need a nomination for the vice chair.
Nominate Judy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gustanian. Any other nominees?
Nominate Joe O'Connor.
Second. Manny nominated Joe O'Connor and
Joe
and was
O'Connor.
seconded by Rich.
Yeah,
Or Bruce. Rich, okay, Rich second. Any other nominees? Okay, hearing none, we'll close nominations. All those in favor of Dr. Benson Clark, say aye, raise your hands. Clerk can see your vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those for Mr. O'Connor. Sorry. And Joe?
I vote for, yep.
Sorry, Joe, it's a little difficult, but bear with us. Okay, so the vote is 6-5 in favor of Dr. Benson Clark.
Congratulations, Judy.
Dan, can you tell me who won the
Judy.
first election?
I did, Joe, as chair. 6-5.
Okay, congratulations.
Yep, thank you. Dr. Benson Clark is vice chairperson. That brings us to the position of secretary. Is there nominations for the position of secretary?
Nominate Joe.
Is there a second for Mrs. Shea?
I'll second that.
Any further nominations? Close nominations. All those in favor of Carol Shea as secretary, say aye, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Joe, how do you vote? For Carol's only one nomination. Joe?
Sorry?
We have one nominee, Carol Shea, for secretary, and right now the board is at 10 in favor. We need your vote.
Okay, fail.
Okay, so 11-0. Thank you, unanimous. And so that brings us to the last position of treasurer.
I nominate Rich Jacobson.
Mrs. DeMatteo nominates Rich Jacobson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Olmsted. Any other nominees?
Nominate Dave Costanzo.
Mr. Castani, is there a second? Second by Mrs. Shea. Any other nominees for treasurer? Hearing none, we'll close nominations. All those in favor of Mr. Jacobson, raise your hand. Rich, Joe, this is for treasurer, and the first vote is for Rich. Are you in favor of Rich?
I am in favor of Rich, yes.
Okay, so that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For Mr. Gustanian, raise your hand. It's 6. Mr. Gustanian will be treasurer. Thank you very much, everyone, and Mr. Superintendent, for starting the meeting. That brings us to public comments, and I know we have a large group here tonight for some very interesting discussion, and we invite your comments. Two things, or one thing actually, I've asked the superintendent tonight, it's a little bit off the rules, outside of the rules, but I asked him to provide a statement because I think there is some misinformation being circulated about the Latin program, and that the board has actually taken steps to eliminate Latin from the middle school or Latin in general, based on the number of emails that the board has received over the weekend. One thing that I can assure you is that the board has not taken any action or had any discussion at large about Latin other than a report that was provided to a subcommittee of the board to talk about some challenges down the road with a retirement and how that may affect offering Latin in middle school in the 2017-18 school year. So with that, and I know everyone's here to speak, so we're going to have public comment, but what I've asked is Dr. Szymanski maybe to begin with a statement before we have public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to go back, the discussion regarding Latin was held at a program subcommittee meeting on December 5th. The minutes have not been approved, but I might add to the program subcommittee. A note was made of the following: that a Latin teacher would be retiring at the end of 2018. The concern was raised relative to the students in grade 7. There might not be a staff member to provide a continuation program. And one of the concerns, one of the concerns, one of the concerns we had was that if students were offered a program in grade 7, there wouldn't be an opportunity to continue it in grade 9 just because of issues around staffing. The notion of having only a high school Latin program is not foreign to the state. There are 2 schools that come to mind, Amity and Glastonbury, that offer only high school Latin. I must reiterate that no decision has been made relative to this program, but I will say this, that if we're going to offer the program, care must be taken to ensure that there's a program for the second-year students. Number 2, that the program is not a selective program, because as we go down the road and start looking at declining enrollment and the impact of declining enrollment, scheduling will always be a challenge in making sure that classes are filled to their optimum sizes. So that it's an issue that confronts us. I can say this, that we've had some issues regarding certification. For example, we've been looking for a tech ed teacher since September. We have not been able to hire one that's been suitable. I can tell you that in one recent time, we were looking at a French teacher. We received no applicants. We received an inquiry from a young person who just graduated from UConn and spent years in France, acquired a master's degree in France, and was teaching French to English to French engineers. To get certified, she had to take 24 additional credit hours. Certification has been a difficult issue for us when it comes to hiring teachers. Again, I will reiterate, no decision has been made. I think that we want to be sure that people are aware of the situation in advance so that appropriate planning can be made. I've heard rumor of one plan that would allow,
Bob, if I can, I just wanted to make sure that, because it's kind of out of order to do this, to have a statement under public comments. If you can bring it under your reports, if you will, but I'd like to move into public comments if you can. Thank you. Anybody would like to address the board at this time, if you could please just stand and state your name. If everybody goes at one time, I'll pick someone, but just be fine and address the board. State your name and the town that you're in. And if you're a student, if you'd like to share the grade that you're in, say that too.
Hi, I'm Allie Rudolph. I'm in Hebron, and I'm currently a PhD student at Harvard University. And, well, I think that Latin is integral, and you have to, with the nature of how the other language programs are set up, I think it's unfair to the program to not be starting in 7th grade. If you don't start the program in 7th grade, you're not going to attract as many students into the high school. And I, with all due respect, do have a hard time believing that with the number of students graduating with things like classics degrees and the difficulty in finding employment with that, that you could not find someone who might have a Latin degree. I think Latin is extremely important, not only for students who are looking to improve writing, because Latin is taught in more of a grammar-intensive way than in a natural language conversation kind of way. So students graduating with Latin tend to be, I would say, better writers, which is something sorely lacking in higher education. In addition, I felt that Latin prepared me profoundly for taking things like the SATs and the GREs by preparing a lot of root words are derived from Latin. I'm currently a biology student, and most of what nomenclature we use comes from Latin, and having a background in Latin has had a profound impact on my ability to look at, I work with bacteria, a microorganism, and say, these root words are present in the bacteria's name, so henceforth, this is likely maybe what the bacteria would look like under a microscope, or maybe the characteristics of the bacteria. Moreover, with how good the program was for Latin while I was a student, I would have to think that if you were to hire another teacher to take the place of Mr. Pingree, which you would obviously have to with him retiring, if there is a tenth of as good as Mr. Pingree was, I have a hard time believing you wouldn't find students for the program.
Just so everyone knows that because we have a large group, we're going to try, if you can, try to keep your comments down to 3 minutes if possible. If we have to go longer, we can, sure. I'm just, Mrs. Shea is just keeping a clock just so that we try to keep it track. So don't be offended if I say there's time, it's fine, but we're going to try to stay on schedule, so please.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Cecilia Tamburo, I'm from Andover. I graduated in 2014 and I'm a junior at Brown University right now. I actually also study biology, that's interesting. I think that you spoke very well about the merits of Latin, and I am in agreement that if we don't start Latin in the middle school, that's definitely not going to help enrollment as people start going into the high school. Additionally, I think it's important to start the foundation of Latin in 7th and 8th grades, so that by 11th and 12th grade you can start going into the real classics. Like when I was in Latin in 11th grade, we read the Metamorphoses of Ovid, and that was extremely interesting. I think that studying Latin is more intense than other languages in that it necessitates almost a mathematical study of the language and a real understanding of how grammar and syntax works. And I also found that to be extremely helpful. When I was taking my SATs, I was thinking about, what is the subject, where does this go, what's the dative, what's the accusative, and I think it was extremely helpful. I think my writing has improved because of it. It also offered me an opportunity to study the ancient world, particularly Rome, in ways that I was not otherwise offered at Rham. And I certainly found the Latin program to be extremely valuable in my time at Rham, and I would be disappointed if it was weakened and by not being offered to middle schoolers. So,
Thank you very much. You want to? Yes.
Hi, my name is Jacob Ouellette. I am a senior at Rham High School, and I'm from Hebron, Connecticut. And I'd just like to speak about how much Latin has affected me as a student, as well as my brother who could not be here as a student. He's a freshman this year, and over the past 2 years, going through middle school, I watched him grow as a student, and he is in the Latin program. He started in 7th grade, moved through 8th grade, and he came in as just your average middle schooler, average 7th grader, and that 1 quarter that he spent in 7th grade shaped him as a student that I know as a fact will carry with him through the next 4 years in high school. And it, you know, as well as myself, it taught me problem-solving skills that had carried into, you know, through the translations and having to work out each sentence and each word and everything that has to do with what you're translating. It went into my sciences, teaching me problem-solving skills. It went through my math, and it went into real life, learning how to really work through problems and work through these sentences. As the other two said, it has helped with my writing. It has helped my brother's writing. Coming out of the elementary school where, you know, the writing programs weren't necessarily the strongest, his writing had just skyrocketed and became something that all the English teachers he ever saw had envied his writing. They loved what he did. And same with myself, my writing improved a lot. I learned how to write some better sentences. I learned about sentence structure. And that 7th grade class is pivotal to really moving these students along, because, you know, before you can get to high school, you have to take the baby steps before you can start running. And that's what that 7th grade class really did. It showed kids, this is what this has to offer, this is what you're going to be doing, and it set that groundwork so that they could really build on everything the minute they got to high school. And that is just absolutely important to a language, it's important to anything. And this program has seen some of the best students that Rham has had. It's put together some of the best students Rham has had. We have Harvard kids have gone through the Latin program, Brown kids, Yale kids, Princeton students, they've all gone through this Latin program, and that it's because of this program that has made these students who they are today. And that 7th grade class is most important to really showing them that this is what this program is going to do for you, and this is why you should stick with it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, board members. I'm Tom Childress. I'm from Hebron. I'm a senior here at Rham. It's come to my attention that the removal of Latin from the 7th grade may be under consideration for the next couple school years. I want to voice my opposition. I started taking Latin in 7th grade, and the course was difficult and required a dedication to study, which I wasn't accustomed to. But the challenge is what made me enjoy the language so much. The amount of study that it took to get through the 5 years that I had taken the language was tremendous. And on the other hand, the amount of scholarship that it has instilled in my academic life has been immense. Many people have taken the perspective that Latin is useless. Throughout my middle and high school years, I was frequently questioned, why do you take Latin? It can't be spoken, so it must be useless. The question has resounded within my mind for years because it's so clear to me why it's so useful to take Latin. There are many reasons, such as being able to learn romantic languages based on Latin so easily, or gaining a deeper understanding of English diction and grammar. There's always been one standout reason why I've taken Latin and continue to do so, is complexity. The ambiguity and intricacy of the language makes it so much more meaningful. Quite literally, Latin is simply another form of communication, but it is also a form of expression. Its elaborate structures and endless possibilities make it such a creative tool. This form of expression was used by many ancient authors and poets and served as their way of communicating many past events and ideas to future generations. This is why it is so important to keep learning and educating others about Latin today. Without it, we would never have been able to learn the ancient quarrels of the Roman Empire or understand the philosophies of past intellects. Latin is an essential tool of learning and education, but also complex thinking. It demands a higher level of cognition, which develops superior learning skills. Because of my experience with Latin at Rham, I plan on majoring in classics in college. It has become my passion and what I want to pursue. Latin 7 is not incorporated into the middle school. Language will not have a chance in competing with others that do offer them and demand less of them. Middle school students will be forced to choose either French or Spanish in the middle school and won't feel compelled to switch languages because they will not want to stray from what they know. Not offering Latin 7 will not only take away the student's option to take the course and experience the language, but it will also reduce the course numbers and ultimately doom the program as a whole. Latin is important, and it's so useful, and that is why we need it. It's another form of expression and communication. of past events that is so useful in today's language. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Gustanian speaking as a citizen. I attended a senior luncheon with Dr. Saminsky on last Friday. We were at the Andover Senior Luncheon where they presented him with an award and thanked him for his many years of service. At that meeting, he was giving them a kind of state of Rham, and he discussed a lot of the things that they've done in the past, things that were upcoming. And he actually did mention to all the seniors there to ask if they knew anybody who were teachers, who were Latin teachers, or if they knew any Latin teachers. So when we started receiving all these emails this morning, frankly, I was shocked. I know this board has never spoken about, removing Latin at all. So.
I want to also speak as from Marlborough, Judy Benson, Clark 61 West Road, and I just would say that I am so heartened to see kids, young adults, and successful college students speaking so eloquently on an academic subject, and we care deeply about the structure of the building and the infrastructure, and we care about sports, but the core of why we're here is the academic core and things such as Latin. And I happen to have children who have benefited from Latin instruction by the teachers and know what a great program it is. So while it's a cold night and I'm sure it took things out of your schedule, thank you for coming to our Board of Education meeting, monthly meeting, and expressing your support of the program.
I would just like to say I'm the president of Hebron. My daughter came home and wanted me to speak on her behalf, but she couldn't be here, and saying how much she loves the class, and that's one of the reasons that she gets up in the morning to go to school is because of her love for that class. My kids have benefited greatly from Latin, and I'm a little, I want to say, disheartened a little bit that the message was transmitted in a way that made people doubt our commitment to the Latin program. I think that in the conversation we were just acknowledging the realities of the difficulty of finding a teacher, and not that that effort wasn't going to be made or anything of the sort. But I am just so excited to see so many people here supporting this amazing program, and I thank you for being here and taking time out of your day. I think it's really, really important.
I'm Madeline Fitzgerald. I'm from Hebron. I just wanted to reiterate the importance of the middle school Latin program. I'm in a kind of unique position. I took Latin for 5 years, but I skipped the 7th grade course for Latin. And I actually did the same thing for Spanish. I started both of them in the 8th grade, about the 8th grade level. And the thing about Latin is that it's much more complex than the other languages. And obviously all languages are equally complex, but the way it's taught at Rham, it's much more advanced. And I found it was much more rigorous Latin compared to Spanish. And I want to reiterate the excellent point that was made by everyone, that it makes you a much better writer. Latin is the language of law and science. I mean, it's an incredibly important language, and I think that it's really disheartening that society as a whole has decided to stop valuing education for the sake of education and the liberal arts. And I think it would be concerning for Rham to cut Latin, and I understand that really just the difficulty is finding a teacher, because I think it would send the wrong message that all that learning is about is just like the bottom line and how you can get the most jobs and how everything has to be practical. Because I think it's oftentimes the impractical subjects that actually make a greater impact on people. And I think that there isn't an obvious and immediate reason that Latin should exist in the eyes of many people, but I think it has a great underlying value. And I think that it really is something that uses all of your brain. Latin made me a better writer, but it made me a better math student as well, because you have